and good morning. If I could get the website to work here, we're taking a look at guncalendars.com, and today is February 28th. We got a couple of things to talk about. I opened them up in a new window here so we could see them all. We'll go in backwards order, at least how they're listed on the site here, and it's the anniversary of the birth of William Fairbairn. Fairbairn. I'm not going to be able to say it if I'm trying to say it. But the Sykes-Fairbairn dagger. Sykes was mentioned earlier this month as one of the anniversaries earlier in the month, but today is the anniversary of the birth of William Fairbairn, and again, someone who was proficient and knowledgeable in hand-to-hand combat in the early 1900s, and then at the beginning of the Second World War, he was brought in with Sykes to train the OSS, and then eventually that training would go to the CIA and to special operations. And a lot of that, the original techniques and concepts and mindset is still the core fundamentals of some of the nastiest fighting, hand-to-hand fighting today. They also knew all about handguns and knife fighting, and that's where you see the iconic Sykes-Fairbairn daggers. So it's the anniversary of his birth back in 1885, and it's also the anniversary of the passing of Harry Derringer, known for his single-shot handguns and rifles, I guess, but mostly handguns. Back in the day, he passed today, back in 1868, and we've also got a couple of negative anniversaries. One is the Brady Handgun Violence Protection Act of '94, which was basically a national level infringement that imposed a waiting period to buy any handguns. It amended the 1968 Gun Control Act and imposed a 5-day national waiting period. It did not last very long because sheriffs in Arizona and Montana stood up and said, if you're going to create federal law that requires local law enforcement to do effort, then you have to pay for it. That was challenged and upheld, and the law was taken down, and then unfortunately it was replaced with something similar called NICS, where they took the burden of background checks off of the local sheriffs, put it back on the federal government, gave more bureaucracy and burden and bloat to the federal bureaucracy, and of course have created an ineffective, racist system that is consistently used as leverage for more and more infringement. So let's not forget the origins of the infringements we have today, which come from infringements in 1994. It's also the anniversary of the beginning of the siege in Waco, Texas. That started on February 28th back in 1993, and it lasted until April. So February all the way through March and in through April, we dealt with the Waco Siege daily, 24/7 news cycle. So anyone who suggests that what we encounter today is unusual or somehow higher volume or more amped up than we've had in the past, they haven't lived through the 60s, and they don't remember the 90s. But Waco, Ruby Ridge, and others are just some the large examples of month-long 24-hour news cycles that were suggesting the world was going to end and the country was going to collapse. Never forget these things, because those who would attempt to manipulate us and those who aren't aware are going to ignore history and suggest that what we experience today, no matter how it is perceived or how it is actually in relationship to things of the past, will always be perceived as the worst thing that's ever happened. Let's not forget that we had more than a month of siege on a bunch of individuals in Texas, and that was the focus of a 24-hour news cycle that was foaming at the mouth to see our system fail. It was not a good situation in any way, shape, or form. We're not celebrating the event, but let's never forget the horrible actions of our law enforcement and the horrible situation that was created there on all sides. I've had the opportunity to visit the place in Waco, and it is interesting. I recommend if you're ever in the area. It takes about a half an hour to drive out there and back. It's not very far from downtown, and it definitely puts it all into perspective of how close to downtown this all happened. It sometimes gets at least I always had the perception it happened out in the middle of nowhere, and it's not the truth. It happened very close to downtown. So I'm sure they heard most of everything downtown because it was pretty close. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know if you lived in the area. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. The idea of guncalendars.com is to start conversation, is to keep people aware of what's out there in our history and to have conversations about it. So lots of stuff to talk about today. Chat with us on the Daily Gun Show. Chat with other people on their projects. But keep chatting. Let's keep talking about guns. Let us know in the comments what you think. We want to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to keep the websites up, to find the information, and to do videos like this one. This all takes some time and a little bit of effort, and they make that possible for us. Thanks for watching.